Everybody, I've got 6 p.m., so I will call the meeting to order. Beaumont City Council regular council meeting of Tuesday, April 12th, 2022 already, middle of April already. Wow, time is just flying by. So with that, we'll begin with the land acknowledgement. We are pleased to be here today on traditional territory of Treaty 6 and the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We're all treaty people. Peace treaties bind us all. With that, I have 4 proclamations this evening, so bear with me. They're a little bit wordy, some of them. So, National Safe Digging Month, April 2022. Whereas each year the integrity of Alberta's underground infrastructure is jeopardized by damage during the ground disturbance activities caused by those who fail to call before you dig. And whereas the consequences of damage to buried facilities can include service disruptions, environmental contamination, property damage, and personal injury, and even death. And whereas Alberta Common Ground Alliance and its members promote the principles of damage prevention best practices, including the need to call before you dig. And whereas ground disturbers, including contractors, homeowners, and landowners, can save time and money and keep our province safe and connected by following damage prevention best practices, including making that one simple to Alberta one call. And whereas the stakeholders in the buried facility damage prevention process, the digging community, buried facility owners and operators, buried facility locators, regulatory agencies, training organizations, and the one center call all agree that prevention of damage to buried facilities is a shared responsibility. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danlick, do hereby proclaim April 2022 as National Safe Digging Month, City of Alberta, dated 21st of March, 2022. 2022 Year of the Garden and National Garden Day. Whereas communities in Bloom and Florida, Quebec, in collaboration with the Canadian Garden Council, invite all municipalities to celebrate the Year of the Garden 2022. And whereas Year of the Garden 2022 celebrates the centennial of Canada's horticulture sector, and whereas gardens and gardening contribute to the quality of life in Beaumont, our climate action goals, and create safe and healthy places where people can come together in the spirit of inclusivity and reconciliation. And whereas Year of the Garden 2022 will highlight and celebrate the important contribution of gardeners, our local gardening organizations, horticultural professionals, local horticultural businesses, which contribute to the garden culture and experience of our municipality. And whereas gardens and gardening have helped us face the challenge of the COVID pandemic. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danlick, hereby proclaim 2022 as the Year of the Garden, in celebration of the contribution of gardens and gardening to the development of our country, our municipality, and the lives of our citizens in terms of health, quality of life, environmental challenges, and that Saturday before Father's Day, National Garden Day, June 18th in 2022, you recognize as Garden Day in Beaumont, dated 21st of March, 2022. Sorry, give me 1 second here. Earth Day, April 22nd, 2022. Whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as global health issues, food and water shortages, and economic struggles. And whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a moral right to a healthy, sustainable environment with economic growth. And whereas it is understood that citizens in the global community must step forward and take action to create a green economy to combat the aforementioned global challenges. And whereas a green economy can be achieved on the individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns. And whereas it is necessary to broaden and diversify this global movement to achieve maximum success. And whereas City of Beaumont hereby recognizes its residents, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the earth and commit to building a sustainable and green economy. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danlick, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2022 as Earth Day in the City of Beaumont, dated March 21st, 2022. Lights On After School Alberta Day, April 22nd, 2022. Whereas Lights On After School Alberta is a province-wide initiative celebrating school-age care programs and their role in keeping kids safe, inspiring them to learn and support working families. And whereas after-school programs build stronger communities by bringing together families, schools, and community partners to ensure the well-being of our children. And whereas working families have peace of mind knowing their school-aged children are safe and productive before and after the regular school day. And whereas after-school programs focus on developing skills and building resilience in our young people, giving them the tools to become responsible, engaging members of the community. Therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Dowling, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2022 as Lights On After School Alberta Day, the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 21st of March, 2022. That was a mouthful. All right, we move on then to our agenda, and we will adopt the agenda. Administration, are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Mayor. Administration has two proposed amendments to the agenda. The first one is an update on policing advocacy. This would be a closed session item. Documents have been distributed to council and the confidential agenda has been updated. The second item, proposed item, is CAO performance review, closed session as well.
Thank you. Before I go to the motion for the adopt the agenda, both Councillors Barnhart and Councillor McCook are joining us by Zoom remotely, and Councillor Monkoff-Swain, Deputy Mayor, sends his regrets. He's been detained at a work function. He won't be able to join us this evening, so there'll be 6 of us this evening. And ladies, I will call upon you to vote accordingly, but verbally, one at a time when I call for various motions this evening. Thank you. Is a member of council willing to adopt agenda as amended? Councillor Miller. Oh, Councillor Miller.
So moved, Mayor Daniluk.
Thank you. Discuss on the motion. Seeing none, I'll ask you to vote. Councillor Barnhart.
Yes, Mayor, I'm in favor.
Councillor McCook.
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. It is proposed that the consent agenda consist of the following items: 5A, special council meeting of March 19th and 20th, 2022. 5B, regular council meeting of March 22nd, 2022. 5C, special council meeting of March 29th, 2022. 5D, special council meeting April 5th, 2022. 6C, wayfinding signage report. And 6G, Leduc and District Regional Waste Management Commission land transfer. Is a member of council willing to move the consent agenda as presented? Councillor Tessier.
Yes, Mayor, I'll move as presented, please.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Councillor Barnhart.
In favor, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McCook.
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, council. All right, moving right along to our next item on our agenda this evening is open forum. Administration, do we have any open forum guest speakers this evening? Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one registration for open forum. Ms. Julia, if you'd like to take the front desk.
Thank you. Office fine if you prefer.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Julia DeLude.
Welcome to council. You have roughly 5 minutes to speak. When you begin, you'll see a clock on the wall on the screen behind you. So please try to keep it to 5 minutes if you can, and we'll have some questions afterwards.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. Mine is won't take 5 minutes. You might remember about a month and a half ago, you were copied on an email that Mayor Daniluk sent to me in response to my email about water in my basement that came from my neighbor's driveway, which hadn't been shoveled. Okay, so that's what I'm here about. We need a bylaw about requiring people to shovel their driveways if they're paved driveways, if it causes problems for their neighbors. Especially in the early spring, snow and ice on unshoveled driveways can melt into the basement, and it potentially can cause cracked foundations, mold, destroyed property, stored property, all the things we keep in our basements. Floors, furniture, wood, appliances, say all the things we keep in our basements. And this melting happens yearly. So it's not a sometime thing. It happens all the time. Well, it happens once a year. And in addition to potentially damaging or destroying property, it's a health hazard. Mold is really dangerous. Okay. So keeping a driveway clear is really easy and cheap. It costs virtually nothing. Regrettably, without an enforceable bylaw, not all owners accept their responsibilities. So their neighbors' property and health are at risk. So I'm proposing that we do need this bylaw. And I understand from Councillor Barnhart that it might be amended on a community standards thing that still isn't in place. So anyway, my proposal is that we have this bylaw for people to shovel their driveways if they're paved driveways. I think that driveways that are dirt or gravel probably goes into the ground, so it probably isn't an issue. I have copies of my main notes, which I can give to you. Councillor Barnhart has one already because I emailed it to her. I brought the others around. If one of you can take them and give it to your colleagues who are here.
Sure, I can take them from you. Sure, when you're done. Yes, no problem.
Okay, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for presentation. Any questions from council for our presenter before I go to our councillors on Zoom? Councillor Tessier, you have the floor.
Thanks so much for coming in and your email. As you know, Councillor Barnhart has a notice of motion coming in tonight for
Yes.
that community standards bylaw. So yeah, thanks for taking the time and giving us that extra information. And tonight we'll be going through that. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Councillor Miller. Actually, you have the floor.
Sure, thank you. Actually, my question is more for Councillor Barnhart. I just wanted to know if this motion that she has currently, if it suffices enough, or if we need to add something to it, because yours doesn't sound like necessarily a just a conflict. You know, it might be. I don't know if it needs to be amended or if this is good. And that's my question to Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay, Councillor Miller and the rest of council? Thank you, by the way, to Mr. Lute for coming in. Appreciate that she took the time to do what she's doing. The motion as I made it, and we'll be talking about later, in my mind is dealing with many different situations that I've been encountering over the years, dealing with neighbors who could find a solution, but for whatever reason can't find that solution to help one another to reach a resolve. Maybe the bylaw is one way to go. Maybe it's not the only way to go. Maybe there's also conflict resolution, mediation in certain circumstances, maybe not in this one, but in others. So I tried to make the motion inclusive, Councillor Miller. If you have an amendment that you think when we get to that item, that might be the time to bring it up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's answers my question.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, Councillor McCook, do you have a question for our presenter?
No questions, Mayor.
No questions, Mayor. Thank you.
One quick question, if you don't mind. You mentioned that your neighbor doesn't clean off their driveway. So if they were to clean the driveway, where would they put the snow? Would they not be putting some snow towards your property as well as the other side of the driveway? Or I'm just curious how that works
Yeah,
in your situation.
it works. I believe, looking at the bylaws that are in place, although I think it's the sidewalk bylaw.
Mhm.
Property owners are meant to put the snow on their own property, not on their neighbors. Now, in the past, the particular landlord who's next to us, who isn't in residence right now, when he shoveled, and he did, threw it all into our yard and actually blocked us in, so we couldn't get out the front door.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is an ongoing problem of all kinds of things with this particular person, but this particular one is about water in our basement.
Okay.
That's the only thing I'm asking about right now.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you for your presentation. Seeing no further questions from council, I do thank you for your presentation this evening, and I'll take those copies from you if you'd like. I can distribute them to council members
Okay.
later on this evening.
Councillor Barnhart already has it.
Sure, no problem. Thanks. Okay, good. Thank you for coming this evening. Appreciate that. Next order of business is the business items, and we are going to 6A, outdoor fitness equipment donation proposal. Who from administration will be speaking to this evening? Aaron? Mr. Leduc, I'll get your mic on here. You are good to go, sir. Oh, hang on. It went off there for a second. Oh, they do it. Hang on. There we go.
Am I on now? Good.
Yes, you are now. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to present to you with an opportunity for Beaumont. Michelob Ultra has approached the city of Beaumont with an opportunity for donation of the supply and installation of Trek Fit outdoor fitness equipment. The city of Beaumont would be required to commit to constructing the outdoor fitness equipment pod in the summer of 2022 to qualify for the donation.
Sorry, Aaron. You might want me to look closer.
Oh, sure. Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. As part of our commitment, we would need to confirm the location of the outdoor pod, complete site preparation and utility locates, complete the addition of concrete borders, engineered wood fiber, and site landscaping. Please refer to attachment 1 for concept layout of the fitness pod and attachments 2 and 3 for signage examples. The donation complies with the provisions of the city's corporate sponsorship, naming rights, and advertising policy, and funding for this project is included in the April budget adjustment report. Beaumont's share of the cost to install an outdoor fitness pod would be $45,000. Communications will be developed for distribution to the public announcing the project and several locations for the outdoor fitness equipment. Administration will create and distribute a survey to gain the feedback on the most desirable location, and the most popular location will be targeted for installation. Once a location is finalized, site preparation would begin in spring 2022 with completion targeted for fall 2022. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Leduc. Appreciate that. Any questions from council for our presenter from administration on this topic? Seeing none in the room. Oh, Councillor vanNieuwkerk, you have the floor. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just wondering on the cost that has been put forward for $45,000 to build that pod. What's the basis of that cost? How did administration come to that cost to put in front of us tonight? Thank you.
Through the mayor to Councillor vanNieuwkerk, we received costing from the installation company that to give us a scope and price for, as I indicated, the concrete borders, engineered wood fiber, and additional landscaping. As well, there's costs in there for consulting fees to ensure that we do the right things for drainage and so on. So we looked into that as well. So that's how those costs were determined.
Thank you. And so when it comes to the firm that you're talking to, is it a firm that like usually does these things? Like this isn't new to them? Like this is something that they do?
Through the mayor to Councillor vanNieuwkerk, yes. So the firm that provided these costs does the installations specifically for Trek Fit and has worked with Michelob and Trek Fit on other projects to install these types of facilities.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I was hoping, is that we were using like the tandem that usually gets these things together. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, so and so just to say, at this point, we've got those costs. We haven't committed to use them to do the construction. It's simply a quote, and then we can determine how we move forward from there. But we do have those costs.
Yeah, and I respect that. I'm sure that the site selection might impact those costs depending on what might be required for preparations or such. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor McCook remotely, then Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Tessier. Catherine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This sounds like a great idea. I know that especially a lot of adults in our community have been asking for and wanting more things recreationally to do. So I think it's a really neat idea. do we have any potential sites that would be suitable currently?
Mr. Leduc?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook, we are considering some locations. There is currently, we're looking at one in the RV park, Jerry Pizzula Park, as a possible location. Other locations are being evaluated at this point for possible consideration.
Okay, great. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McCook. Councillor Barnhart. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. What I was wondering about is the signage. Now, I understand what we have attached are examples of what other cities have done, City of Toronto. Is there going to be mention of Michelob Ultra on that signage? And I do recognize that you did mention this was in keeping with our advertising sponsorship policy, but I'm just wondering, where does Michelob Ultra get their value for their money in terms of advertising?
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, thank you for the question. The only determination or the only mention of Michelob on the signage would be on the welcome sign, which would say this park, not specifically this language, but this park would be donated. This park has been donated by Michelob Ultra. We've confirmed that there's no branding, like there's no beer advertising, no branding, simply the words Michelob Ultra as a donation. The reason they're doing this, it's part of their strategy around promoting active lifestyles with their product. They recognize that municipalities aren't going to be too excited about throwing beer ads or branding onto parks. So that's definitely not part of the plan.
I have to say, I love the idea, but I am a little concerned about that. That is for the reason they're not putting it there. That's exactly the reason that I have some hesitation here. I think they're being very generous, but I also know that they need something in return for that. They're in a business, and I understand that. So I'm just a little hesitant at this point. Can you assure me in some way, Mr. Leduc, from well, I guess you've said it. You basically have said there aren't going to be pictures of beer, and there's not any other requirement on our part to promote their product.
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, that is correct. We have asked these questions, and there is no link. And so you'll notice also on the signage there are QR codes, and so I asked about those as well. I said, what are the links to those QR codes? You can actually, in the example, if you actually use your phone, you can actually click on the QR codes, and all of those QR codes simply lead to an exercise or exercises that were generated and prepared by TrekFit. So there's no, again, because I was concerned as well. Well, is this going to go to a beer ad? And I'm also told that those QR code links are permanent, so they cannot be changed. So they will go to an exercise that flows with the signage.
Good. I'm glad you did the due diligence. And one last question. Have we been able to touch base with the City of Toronto to see if everything has gone okay?
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, no, we have not.
And that's the only other city you know that has done this type of sponsorship with them?
Fort McMurray has also done this sponsorship.
Okay. Nope, just would be a good idea to check and see just how that has gone. But yeah, okay, I'll await what others are going to say and ask any other questions. Thank you.
Councillor Tessier, you have the floor. Go ahead, Renee. Sorry, I hit the button there. There you go.
No worries. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. My first question was sites, locations, but Councillor McCook asked that. So 100% support for this. It's been asked for. I'd love to use it. Good way to get something into Beaumont for half the price, so less than. So yeah, in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier. Are there any further questions from council this evening for our presenter on this topic? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion. The motion suggestion is to accept the report as presented. Is there a member of council willing to make that motion, please? Councillor Tessier, Renee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that by April 12th, 2022 report outdoor fitness equipment donation be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Councillor Barnhart. Oh, hang on one second, sorry. There we go. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to be clear, we're accepting it as information. This is an administrative matter, if that's my understanding.
Well, actually, it's going to be part of the budget. It's mentioned earlier that item will be part of the budget
Yes.
discussion with Mr. DeBlanco under 6D. And that cost of 45 is incorporated in that upcoming budget discussion this evening. And it'll be voted upon at that time as well. So it's information for right now, correct, but it will be discussed as part of.
That's right. So I'm in favor of the motion. That's
Thank
on the floor now.
That's what I assumed. Thank you. Councillor McCook.
In favor, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Ms. Leduc, thank you for your presentation. Next on our agenda is 6B, 56A Street Restoration Report. I believe, Mr. Leduc, are you also presenting that? Oh, no, please come to the table. And your mic, let me see the right one here.
Testing.
There you are. Here you are.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Josh Gale. I'm the Manager of Utility and Facility Operations for the City of Beaumont. So work with Aaron. I'm here to present this request for decision today related to the public consultation regarding restoration of the 56th A Street Rink. So in 2021, the 56th A Street Rink was removed. The rationale being that this rink was located about 350 meters from the newly constructed Montelay Rink and the Montelay Free Skate ice surface. And as part of the annual budget process in 2021, Council passed a motion directing administration to conduct public engagement and provide a summary report on the possibility of restoring this outdoor rink on 56 A Street. So administration, we conducted an online survey in March 2022 to gauge the interest of restoring this rink. We received 169 responses from the 10-day publication period of that survey. And that's a fairly strong response rate compared to other surveys we've put out in Beaumont recently. Interpretation of these results indicate that there was a 79% of respondents were supportive of the restoration of the rink. And we did ask questions in the survey related to the location of the survey respondent, where they lived, and further that to the Northwest Quadrant specifically, very strong support for restoration. 91% of survey respondents supported restoration. So with regard to budget and financial impact, restoration of that rink would involve consulting services such as engineering, survey, geotechnical, and earthworks. We estimate right now approximately $80,000 to restore that rink. And from an ongoing operations perspective, the addition of an additional ice surface would require increased annual funding of approximately $10,000 to support staffing to meet service level commitments. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Gale. Appreciate that. Any questions for our presenter administration on this topic? Councillor Miller, you have the floor, followed by Councillor Tessier. Go ahead, Ashley, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Gale. You looked at me like you knew I was going to ask the question. Can I have, or could you, I guess, elaborate on the breakdown of the cost? Because I know you said just exactly what I read in the report.
Right.
So I was kind of looking for more of a detailed breakdown.
Sure. So through the mayor to Councillor Miller, we recently put all the dirt into the area. So now we know how much quantity there is. So we know how many truckloads that is. We know what it costs to rent a truck for that many hours and rent the earthwork equipment to do that, and then dispose of the dirt itself. So the cost would involve moving approximately 400 yards of topsoil. So we have to have a grader and dump trucks and all that cost. So that's the breakdown. And then engineering oversight to survey the lands, do some geotechnical survey to make sure that the berm is intact, and then reseeding and resodding as needed in the area.
Okay. I do have just a question, I guess, directed towards administration on the original removal of the rink. I'm sure I was under the understanding, and I should have went back and looked, but I'm sure that there was public engagement in order to remove the rink. Is that correct?
CEO Schwartz?
Yeah, through the mayor to council. Not that I'm aware of. What we did is looked at what parts of the community were served with outdoor facilities, as council had directed us to increase facilities. One of those places was about, I don't know, 500 meters to the west at Dansero. It's not called Dansero, it's called something else, where there was two rinks put there. And then there was the Montrose area, I believe is the name of it, that was not served. So what we did is made the decision to move that rink hypothetically down to the south end of the city because of the addition of the other two. But I'm not aware of any full-blown public constitution.
Okay. I guess, I understand the cost that it, is now to reinstate the rink, but it's disappointing considering the numbers that came back for public engagement are so high. It's disappointing that we are now in this predicament that we have to spend this money if we move ahead with it. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, before I move to Councillor Tessier, we're being asked this evening to receive the report as information. We can make other decisions if a motion comes forward from council, but right now we're just being asked to receive it as information. So I'll go to Councillor Tessier, followed by Councillor vanNieuwkerk. Renee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So is there any tarps or anything in the ground when they make outdoor rinks in Beaumont?
So through the mayor, Council Tessier, no, it's basically overland flooded.
Okay. Yeah, and just kind of what Councillor Miller was saying, and I guess it could be a learning lesson before we take things out to ask, but it's needed to get back in. So it's been quite clear through the survey and just from people reaching out. So thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you. And I will ask council that we have everybody's chance to talk about it before any motions come forward. If any member of council, in case some are being contemplated. Councillor vanNieuwkerk, and then I'll go to Councillors Barnhart and Cook in case they have any questions. I'll come to them in a moment. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I didn't catch what you just quite said about motions.
Oh, maybe you hold any motions until everyone has a chance to ask any questions. Then I'll ask for a motion to accept information or other motions that the council may want to entertain. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I intend on contemplating a motion, but I'll just ask some further questions, I guess.
Yes, please.
Just surrounding $80,000, the geotechnical assessment and such. So knowing the volume of soil that went into that and the timeline that it took to go in, it was documented by residents in the area, and you can look back on social media and literally see it happen in real time. So the community knows how long it took, and $80,000 seems like quite an unreasonable sum to redo that. When the soil is actually put in there, one of the things that was passed along to council is that that it was done using all city equipment, and work through the operational budget as something that was planned to be done. What is the possibility of taking your time over the summer and incorporating the removal of that soil into the budget and getting to it as you get to it, and working that in? Is that something possible that we could consider to bring no further cost to the taxpayer?
So through the mayor to Councillor vanNieuwkerk, I'm sure that's something we could consider. Like as you noted in the RFD here, that the estimate was based on using non-in-house labor to perform. So certainly, our roads crews have some of this equipment, but not all of it. So there would be, our roads crew does do similar types of work, and so we'd have to evaluate if we had available resources to do that kind of work over the course of a period of time.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits right now is that, time isn't quite your enemy, right? So we're standing at the beginning of the season now, and I know council is forever asking administration to do more with less, and I get that, right? But I'm just trying to look at, creative options to, to fulfill, the wishes of those residents who came out in droves into that survey, while we keep costs to the taxpayer down. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great comment. And I would just say that, we do have a fairly active season this summer with pothole repair and sidewalk maintenance and whatnot. So we would have to, look deeply into our resource allocation to see what kind of available hours there'd be. But yeah, we would estimate this work would be kind of a, would be 80 to 120 hours of work, for mobile equipment. So over the course of 2 weeks kind of thing. So we would need to figure out, do we have that internal resource available over the course of a period of time, right?
Mhm.
Thank you. I'll go to CEO Schwartz, and then I see Mr. Lewick. You'd like to make a comment? Who should go first, gentlemen? CEO Schwartz, I'll go to you first, please.
When I look at the report talks about being up to 80,000. So I can only assume that that's the costing that Josh, you've done for those 80 to 120 hours. What, if we were to be able to schedule and do most of that work ourselves, what do you think we could save? Like, could we save 50% of that? Everything lined up? And I know we're short and we have tons of work to do, but.
Yeah, I would say, there are certain things we would have to contract out regardless, but some of the labor, you'd probably be accurate, would probably be 30 to 50% of the cost could be mitigated through internal resources.
Mr. Lewicki, would you make additional comment? I'm not sure which mic you're on there. Let's try that one and see what happens. That's you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
There we go. I just wanted to indicate the reason we priced it as an external is we to Josh's point, we've had resource constraints throughout the seasons. It will be another busy season, and we didn't want to commit to something that would be very difficult for us to do. And so that is why we costed it that way. In the past, we've committed to a lot of things and spread our team very thin, and then we start missing our actual work that we're supposed to be doing. So that was the intention behind costing it externally. And as Josh had indicated, we don't have all this equipment. And I know it seems like 80,000 or up to 80,000 is a lot of money for this, but ultimately, the dirt, the material was put back in there, but in order to create a solid surface and do this sustainably and in the right manner, you need to make sure it's compacted properly. You need to do the testing. You need to make sure we're not going to get settlement in the area. There's a right way to do it. And that's how we priced this out, so that we could do this in a proper manner. So I just wanted to make those clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councillor McCook or Councillor Barnhart, do you have any questions before I have a comment on myself? Do you wish to speak?
None for me, Mayor. I'm okay at this time.
Councillor McCook?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Gale, thank you for coming this evening. At first glance, about 80,000 was a rather large number, and I have difficulty getting my head around spending 80,000 to re-establish a rink that was already there. I understand from the last comment, compacting is important. I keep going back. I keep thinking to myself, when we did the artificial turf field, we had to know what was underneath the ground before I could build that field. That made sense to me. Doing the environmental study, the geotechnical, that all made sense. To me, this is a rink that's not there that needs to be compacted and built up again. 80,000 is a very large number. I can't get my head around that for redoing the rink here. I don't know what Councillor vanNieuwkerk may have a motion coming. I'll give him the chance to do that. I would prefer we're being asked to receive as information, which I'm prepared to do this evening, but we can get a much firmer number on the actual expenditure. I appreciate being cautious on the upside. I get that, but 80,000 to me is a very large number, even with being cautious, to redo a rink that was taken away. And I respect the fact that the citizens in the area want it. I'd love to have it too. I just can't spend 80,000 to do it right now. If I decide right now, what I'm hearing is encouraging. We could find ways to get this number down, but I need to get, in my mind, a firm idea what the number could actually be before I be prepared to vote for it going in at a future meeting. So with that, Councillor Newkirk, do you wish to speak again? Steve, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was contemplating bringing a motion forward tonight to try and advance this issue, but based on the discussion that we've had here, I think tonight I'd be willing to accept this as information. This isn't an issue that I would like to see die. I will figure out a way through the notice of motion process to get this issue back on our radar, and it will it will involve using city equipment to do it, right? Like, I think we need to be a little bit more creative. And like I said, I respect the amount of work that we've already assigned you to. I understand, the budget commitments that we've made and that you guys are moving all those balls down the road, right? So just trying to find a solution here that, that restores a rink that people want in the most economical way possible. So Mayor, I'll be prepared to accept this as information tonight and do some homework here on the best way to bring a notice of motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Newkirk. I appreciate that. And I do appreciate the comments earlier from our administration that this project, we want to make sure we do it right the first time. If we're going to redo this rink, get it right, so we're not going to redo it a year or two later. I understand that completely. Just 80,000, a little bit big number, even doing it right. So we'll get back to that. But I have CEO Schwartz for some comments and also our city clerk on how to proceed going forward. CEO Schwartz, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, through the mayor to the rest of council. I wanted to just clarify why the decision was made to move it, because it seems like it was, just a simple matter of we decided we didn't want to build one there. What we did is we looked at the allocation of outdoor ice surfaces in our city. During COVID, we had added a whole bunch more, but we had a definitive service level. Council then added several rinks, including an outdoor surface, boarded and unboarded, about 500 meters to the west. And as I said earlier, there was an area southwest in our city that was not served with any ice surface. So we've got a definitive amount of resources to maintain, say, 10 outdoor rinks. We just added 3. So we decided to take one of those 10 and move it to the southwest. So that's why the decision was made. And I get that that's irrelevant to the point that we're now looking at reinstalling one in another area, and that's certainly council's prerogative. But then the only other thing I would say is, as you know, and as Aaron had talked about, filling in a hole and properly compacting it, filling in a hole with dirt is one thing. Building an ice surface that's fully compacted is another. So that's why the cost, but we can certainly break those costs down and squeeze them a little bit harder. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewacki, would you wish to speak as well to this matter? Okay, so your mic was on. Sorry, thank you. So having said that, this evening, administration wishes to say any comments on how to go forward, or we can accept the motion as information. We're okay? Thank you. Is there a member of council willing to make the motion to accept this report as information? Councilman Newkirk.
Yeah, I will motion to accept this report as information. Specifically that the April 12th, 2022 report, public consultation regarding restoration of 56A Street Rink be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion from council? I have a quick question, administration then. Administration, I think council had the feeling that the price was a bit of a stumbling block. Do you have enough information from this motion to bring us back more information in the future? Or should we have a notice of motion brought by another council at a later time? What's the best way to proceed? Ms. Winter? There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. You currently have a motion on the floor just to accept as information. I, myself, and Ms. Bougea could work with Councillor vanNieuwkerk to bring a notice of motion at a later meeting.
Thank you. We'll proceed accordingly. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion on the motion, I will ask council to vote accordingly. Councillor Barnhart?
In favor?
Thank you. Councillor McCook?
In favor, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, Mr. Gale. Appreciate you coming this evening. Next item on our agenda is 6D, 2022 budget amendment approval. I believe Mr. DeBlanco is here to present this evening. Curtis, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Good evening to the mayor and council. I'm Curtis DeBlanco. I'm the director of finance for the city. Before you is a report seeking council approval on amendments to the 2022 operating capital budgets. These amendments result from economic factors, decisions from other entities, and some administrative updates. Administration's recommendation is for these amendments, as seen in attachment 1, be approved and the approved budgets be increased by those amounts. Attachment 1 provides a view of the budgets approved on December 14th, 2021, approved carry forwards from February 21st, 2022, and other adjustments to date, as well as proposed amendments to arrive at the final amended budgets pending council approval. Proposed amendments fall into 4 categories. economic updates, adjustments from other entities, council directed, and administrative. For economic updates on the operating budget, administration evaluates changes from economic forecasts subsequent to the approval of the budget in December. Amendments to the budgets are proposed so that the property tax bylaw, which will be coming forward in 2 weeks, can be approved to collect the required taxation revenue for the city. Since council approved the 2022 municipal operating budget, administration has finalized the overall assessment and growth numbers for 2022. Administration did forecast an increase to taxation revenue associated from real growth in the amount of $597,000. The finalization for the numbers for the 2022 tax year have resulted in actual real growth of $871,000, which is an increase in revenue of $274,000. As shown in attachment 1, administration is recommending that the taxation revenue budget be increased and that this increase be offset with a similar transfer to reserves. This has no impact on the 2.4% approved increase. For economic updates to the capital budget, attachment 1 includes an amendment to the Russo school site project. In 2020, the province announced construction funding for this new K-12 Francophone school. The city is required to provide a shovel-ready site in time for school construction to begin. Work on this project did begin in 2020, and further work is required to bring services to this site. The cost of installation of the services will be paid back to the city over time as the Russo neighborhood is built out. An additional $2.3 million is required to finish the site, in addition to the previously approved budget of $5.2 million, bringing the total to $7.5 million. Additional funds are required due to differences in construction costs based on 2022 tendered unit values, as well as a change in the project design to complete the ring road as part of 66th Street. Another update to the capital budget is an amendment to the transportation renewal program. A summary is included in this report, but in short, this amendment is proposed to align work in the St. Vital area with the already approved water and wastewater renewal programs, and to reduce the amount of time this neighborhood is impacted by construction, as well as yielding future cost savings of approximately $205,000. The budget is also amended by decisions from other orders of government, such as federal or provincial, as well as other entities that may have an impact on the city's budget. Included in this category are any grants the administration has applied for and since received approval. These amendments have been included to receive approval from council for these grant funds to be spent. Detailed project profiles on 3 new grant funded projects are as follows. In the municipal operating budget, a grant for $75,000 was approved for CMHC Housing Supply Challenge. A grant for $21,800 was received for New Horizons for an intergenerational legacy project. And as council heard earlier tonight, funding for outdoor fitness equipment has been included in this amendment in the capital budget. Administrative updates to the municipal operating budget include shoring up the requisition tax number. The city receives updated requisition amounts in the spring from the Alberta School Foundation Fund, St. Thomas Aquinas School Board, and the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, as well as from the provincial government for any designated industrial property in the city. This administrative amendment is to adjust the budget to the updated amounts received. Also in the municipal operating budget are some carry forward projects that were previously approved for show home signage and the permits, lands, and licensing project. These projects have unspent funds from previous budgets and are required to complete these projects. These were not included in the list of carry forwards that was approved in February. Administrative updates to capital are an update to our utility renewal programs for stormwater drainage. A detailed project profile for this amendment is for the North Beaumont drainage ditch improvements, and that's included as attachment 5, as well as another carry forward administrative adjustment for Range Road 241 in the amount of $60,000. To complete the project, this amount would be drawn from the unspent funds that were not utilized in 2021. For financial implications of this budget amendment, the approval of the recommended amendments included in attachment 1 The average percentage increase on municipal property tax will still remain at 2.4%. And approval of these amendments will result in the municipal operating and capital budgets being increased in both revenue and expenditures by the amount shown in the report. There is no amendment proposed to the utility operating budget. This concludes the budget amendment report. At this time, I'll turn the floor back to council and we would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Appreciate that. Questions from council at this time? See none in the room right now. Councillor Barnhart or Councillor McCook, do you have any questions, Mr. Blanco?
Yes, I have a comment first off. I'm very pleased to see the sorry, Mayor. Did you? I'm talking away. I was muted. Very pleased to see the housing supply challenge that's coming to fruition there, and the other intergenerational project that's being looked after in the Community and Social Development Department. Glad to see those items coming forward. My only concern still is based on the earlier item, and I'm just I wonder if it's appropriate to ask one question of the administration about the signage that's going to go up on the outdoor equipment. Is that out of line, Mayor? Can I ask that question now?
Please proceed.
The question is that looking at what was there for the City of Toronto, they have an age restriction on the use of that equipment. And I didn't hear whether we were going to have, and I might have missed it. Are we putting an age restriction and how is that going to be enforced?
Yep, go ahead.
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart. There will be the same age restriction will apply to this equipment as to the equipment, the signage that was in the example. Enforcement wise, there won't be any enforcement outside of the signage to provide due diligence that children under 13 years of age should not use the equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leckie. Councillor Barnhart, follow up.
Well, Mayor, I'm just a bit of a conundrum because I don't want to stop the whole amendment to the budget. Well, and I know I won't with one vote, but I do have some difficulty with that that course of action. So don't know what to do with that because honestly, it's small compared to what's here in the budget amendment, but it's I think it's an important project, and I don't want it to go sideways. So.
Okay, so I'll ask you a question then. So are you suggesting a motion to take it out and kill that project from going forward? Are you okay with, it's already part of this budget amendment, that 45,000 spend on Beaumont's have to make that the recreational equipment donation work. So I guess the choice is you can make a motion to take it out as a standalone and council will vote on it accordingly. And if it gets taken out, the project would cease. Or if it gets defeated, if you make that motion, then it goes in with the capital, with the amendment on the budget and the project goes forward. What do you want to do?
Well, Mayor, I'm not against the whole project. I just would like to see if we are going to be putting some care and concern into where it's being located and who is using it. I just am a bit concerned about that equipment being used by very young children. And that's kind of one of my concerns. But I mean, I know that we need this equipment and we'd like to have it for the adults in the community. So that's where I am at a loss. So if I'm a standalone on this one, that's fine. But I do have some concerns about it going forward without more attention being paid to the safety aspect.
Ms. Lewicki can offer some feedback. Ms. Lewicki, go ahead, please.
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, some of the, and I think this is in the report, but one of the things that Michelob had indicated is that they request that this equipment not being located near a playground or a school. So the idea is that kids won't be tempted to use it. Now, I mean, it will be equipment somewhere in the city, kids can approach it. However, one of the donation requirements is that it will not be located adjacent to a school or a play area for children. So that will be taken into consideration. Should we get approval to proceed, we would not be providing locations that would be near a school or a playground. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, one last point.
Yes.
I know that enforcement is very expensive in terms of proactive, preventative and like enforcement, where the bylaws officers are going around and actually checking it out. I know that's very expensive. But if there could be on the signage some possibility for citizens to report misuse of the equipment by certain circumstances, would there be a possibility that bylaw then could go out and follow up on that? Because I think putting out a sign and then doing absolutely nothing as a result of that makes no sense.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Lewicki, you wish to comment? If not, that's okay. I just thought your mic was still on, so.
Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart. I guess that could be an option. I know municipal enforcement has a lot of work to do, and I think that this probably wouldn't be on their priority list to maintain. I also know that the idea of fitness equipment in other municipalities is not a new idea, and they have similar restrictions on the use of the equipment. I would be surprised if they would have any type of mechanism to enforce the age restrictions on the equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Mr. CEO Schwartz, and then I'll go on to the next councillor.
Yes, thank you very much,
Floor.
Mayor Daniluk, through you to Councillor Barnhart. Just to build off of what Mr. Lewicki said, in order to enforce this, for one, we would require a separate bylaw approved by council that would give our officers the ability to enforce it. And it's not unlike a lot of other signage throughout the city that does warn people about age limits and all kinds of other things for different types of equipment. So it's going to rely on the parents to keep their children safe. And I think that's about as best we can do.
Mr. Lewicki, follow up?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart. I just thought of another example. I mean, our toboggan hills, for instance, I don't want to go down another slippery slope. That's a terrible one. But
Not a bad pun.
the idea there is that we have signage there that indicates, okay, there's hazards, there's dangers here, but we're not enforcing that through bylaw enforcement saying, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, it's dangerous, right? So I kind of look at that. There's another example of an activity we provide in the city that, it's use at your own risk. We place administrative considerations on signage about how it should be used, and then we leave it to the judgment of the users. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewicki. Appreciate that. Councillor Barnhart, any follow-up before going to the next speaker?
Well, I'll just have to say, Mayor, that I hate to vote against the whole budget amendment because there's things in there that I like, but I don't seem to have any choice right now. So I will not be in favor of this amendment.
I appreciate that. Councillor McCook, do you wish to speak? I didn't hear you say yes or no.
Just one quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
Once you guys choose a spot for this fitness site, will we be informed at all, or will it just be chosen and gone ahead?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook. The plan was to do the survey as indicated, provide the location that was most desirable, and then move forward. I think the issue is timing. We have to move fairly quickly on this to meet the requirements under the donation requirements. So at this point, I was not anticipating to come back to council with, here's the location we've chosen, we're going to move forward. I guess we could look at doing that if that's something that council needs to see before we proceed.
That's okay. I think you clarified it for me when you said kind of based on the survey results. That way we'll have some input from the residents as well as to where it'll most likely be used.
Yeah, through the mayor. Sorry, through the mayor to Councillor McCook. Yes, the idea is that we had to move quickly in order to qualify for the donation, but we also didn't want to just say, boom, here's what you get. We wanted to give the citizens some opportunity to provide input into the location. Now, obviously, there's not there'll be many factors and restrictions on where we can put this. Those will be taken into consideration in the chosen options for the pod, and then we'll let citizens choose from there.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. You're a good
I can
cat.
appreciate, yeah, I can appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. McCook, Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Michelob for the offer of the donation to the city of Beaumont. I look forward to approving the construction of the required base and the community using the facility. I think it's exciting. I am sincerely thankful for them choosing Beaumont for this opportunity. So thank you. Also looking forward to administration determining an appropriate location for the facility. So there's a little bit of work to do, but thanks for that. Question for finance, just on the donation and the 115,000. I know that's the sum total of the 70 and 45. Can you just explain how that number is presented? A portion being required spend from council and then a portion being donation. It's presented as a lump together, but can you just explain how it's presented and the intent there? Thank you.
Sure, through the mayor to Councillor vanNieuwkerk. So in order to have this amount approved in the capital budget, we want to show the total amount of the project. So the sum total of 115,000 would be that 45,000, which is the city's required contribution, as well as the value of the equipment that's contributed in the form of 70,000. It's an accounting exercise for the 70,000 non-cash transaction, but for the 45, we would have to specify a funding source. So in attachment 1, so the amended capital budget, we're suggesting that the entire amount come from out of the city's grant pool for 45,000.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that explanation. Just 3 other quick numerical things.
Please proceed,
Sounds
Steve.
good. If I could rewind right back to the beginning when you were talking about 597 forecasted and then real value of 274. Could you just go through that narrative one more time? I lost track of
Sure.
those numbers, right? Like literally right at the beginning.
Thank you. So as part of the budget, we have to forecast an estimate of assessment growth. The amount at the time when meeting with our municipal assessor that we forecasted was 597,000, and that's real growth. That's new building in the city, and that's the amount that the city would expect to yield in terms of taxation revenue from this new assessment. As part of the shoring the total assessment for the city up in the spring, there was an increase of 274,000 that we should expect to receive through growth revenue. It's always an exercise in how well can we predict what growth is going to be, and this number reflects the actual amount that the city should expect to yield from new growth revenue.
So that is to say 274 is the real number, 597 was the forecast. Or is it 597 plus 274?
So it would be 597 plus 274.
Gotcha. Okay, that's where I wasn't keeping track. Perfect. Thank you. Second question.
Please proceed.
Just on the Russo school site. So in the capital budget, we had approved 2.2 million, and then here it's adjusted to 2.3. So that $100,000 difference is what you brought forward. And is that how I understand that, or am I reading that incorrectly? I'm just not following that train of thought. Thank you.
So to be clear, the 2.2 is already approved, and this amended budget is proposing an increase of 2.3 additional to that 2.2.
On top of that.
On top of that.
Okay, for a total combined project cost of 7.5 million.
For the total project over the course of the last 3 years.
Since dirt started moving. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and that 7.5 million, what percentage of that is paid back to Beaumont over time?
100%.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to be very clear what the sum total was in 3 tranches and the fact that that is coming back to Beaumont over time. So that's good. And then one more, Mayor. This one's more of a mapping exercise. I can't figure out where that drainage ditch is. I love hearing about that stuff, and I can't wait to see more water move, but I just can't understand where that is. If someone could explain to me, thank you.
That's attachment 5.
Yeah, there's no map though. It's just
Right.
It's just a land description, and I didn't plug it into the mapper.
So through the mayor to Councillor vanNieuwkerk, the ditch is in the northeast quadrant of the city, past the La Rev. So we have a right of way that runs through that northeast quarter of the area that we now own. So as per the description, we recently took ownership of that ditch, and it is in need of maintenance and repair in order for it to flow properly.
So this is in not Beaumont proper, but yeah, up in the acquired lands on the annexed lands then?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Ms. Raymond wishes to add some initial comments. Ms. Raymond, please.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor vanNieuwkerk, it's the Villotard property at the
Okay.
north portion
Okay.
of the edge of town. Yep.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah, that's what I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman vanNieuwkerk. Any further questions? I have a couple of quick comments. Mr. Blanco, just briefly, if you don't mind. So again, we went back to the Russo school site. Your questions were very well answered. Appreciate that. And one question I have is that on additional 2.3 million, a good chunk of this probably has to do with the changing of the 66th Street. When you start changing roads, you have to start changing a whole bunch of other things. So that's probably the bulk of that increase would be due to the change in the road design that has to be accommodated. Would you be able to elaborate on that somewhat?
Ms. Raymond will probably have a better, more thorough answer than I can provide.
Thank you.
Depends on how thorough you want. Through your chair, well, to yourself, the increase in costs is due to, yes, the change to complete the ring road on the west side of Beaumont, but also due to inflation. Costs for construction have gone up enormously, with water costs going up in the order of 90 to 100% this year. So our previous quote was based in 2020 numbers, and these are 2022 tendered figures. So that's the difference there.
That's helpful. Thank you. And his previous answer was that all this money is coming back to us over the offset levies as Russo's gets built out. So this is all coming back to Beaumont as time goes on. Much appreciated. So at that point, seeing no further questions from council, I will ask for a motion to adopt the report as presented. Is there a member of council willing to make that motion? Then we'll discuss it. Councillor Miller, you have the floor, Ashley.
Am I seeing it up there or no?
Just be a second, it'll be up on the screen.
Sure. So I move that the amendments to be approved, that the amendments to the approved 2020 municipal operating, utility operating, and capital budgets as set out in attachment 1 of the April 12th, 2022 report, 2022 budget amendment be approved.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion, please, from anybody on council. Councillor McCook, any questions on discussion on the motion?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart.
Well, Mayor, I still have my conundrum, and I was wondering if there'd be a way of voting on that one separately on attachment 4.
Well, at this point, we have a motion on the floor. Ms. Winter, do you wish to make a comment to answer Councillor Barnhart's question? Shalene, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. If Councillor Barnhart wishes to make an amending motion to the main motion, we can do that at this time.
Okay.
And would we deal with that motion first?
That's correct. So what we would do is put the amending motion to the main, which would remove, I believe you're looking at removing the fitness one, the 115,000. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I would put the amending motion up. We would vote on that one first and see what would happen with that. And then we would go back to the main motion, whether it be amended or whether your motion would be defeated.
Okay, we'll take a moment and allow Ms. Winter a moment to draft that for you. And once you approve the wording, we'll have you make that motion, Councillor Barnhart, and we will discuss and vote accordingly. Thinking back to the original motion, which was to adopt the budget amendments as presented.
Thank you,
So
Mayor. I
we'll-
do have an amending motion up on the screen for
Can you see it, Councillor Barnhart?
I just have to move my screen over. Yes, I do.
Okay, so before you word it, just want to read it, make sure it said what you want it to say.
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, please proceed to make your motion.
So I make the following motion that the outdoor fitness, do I need to read the whole thing, Ms. Winter, or just the amending motion?
Yes, please.
Just the amending motion.
Amending motion. That the outdoor fitness equipment pod and funding of 115,000 be not deleted, but deleted from attachment 1. There's just a spelling error there. And if I could just say one, if I could speak to it, Mayor?
Yes, please speak to your motion, then I'll have questions.
I really do want the outdoor fitness equipment. I know it doesn't sound like that. But I do think that we have, with this particular project and, you know, the one that other projects that we have done in the past, where we have put up signage that is meant to deter and prevent bad things from happening, and then we don't follow it up with any enforcement. I think, you know, I hate to use the word liability, but I think we're leaving the city open for some liability. And I know that the cost of enforcement and other things might be deterrents for us to do anything to prevent that from happening. But I hate to think that there's no way that we could do this without having some protection, again, so that if it's not meant to be used by children under the age of 13 in Toronto, and we're going to follow that same procedure, what standards are we using? Are there standards out there that we can say we followed these standards? We do that with playground equipment and have done it for years, for decades. So this just seems to me to be going too quickly into something without taking the precautions necessary. So that's my reason. I really do want to see the fitness equipment set up, but I want to see it protected in a way that children that are perhaps unable to use the equipment appropriately might get hurt. So those are my reasons, and I'll see what the rest of council wants to do.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this amendment? Amending motion, pardon me. Councillor Tessier, followed by Councillor vanNieuwkerk. Renee, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Barnhart. Yeah, sorry, I won't be in favor of this motion just because, Kathy, I don't really see it any much different than a regular playground. I look at my 2-year-old goes up on like a 6-foot-high open non-gated playground in our city. I don't know if the liabilities are any different. When I look at the pictures for these fitness facilities outside, I've seen them in Camrose, Fort Saskatchewan, and different ones. The strategy of putting them outside those playground areas is going to limit those young kids going there, because most of the young kids, they got to go with a parent or strollers or supervision, those type of things. So I really want to see it in our city, and it's been asked for years, and this is a great opportunity to get something at a lesser cost and see how it goes. So that's just my perspective and my point of view. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Lewicki has a comment before I go to Councillor vanNieuwkerk. Mr. Lewicki.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, I just want to make a clarification, just so everybody's aware. Playgrounds, this equipment is not under the same set of standards as a playground. So you wouldn't have the fall protection type of same level of fall protection and CSA type of safety for this equipment due to the age restrictions, right? So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that it's not under the same playground standards, and it would not be inspected in the same manner as a regular playground. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. And you know, we've all been to the skate park a ton of times. You're supposed to wear a helmet. Does it happen all the time? No. So is that more dangerous than an adult fitness facility? To me, yes. And there are standards for the playground. I get that, but there's still some of them. You go up 6 feet, my height, and it's wide open. And you know, I'm telling the 2-year-old not to do it, and they listen. But there's still that opportunity for them to fall. So I don't see any safety concerns with this at all. But that's just my 2 cents. And thank you for weighing in on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor vanNieuwkerk. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank Councillor Tessier for the realistic and kind of common sense comments there. You took some of the words right out of my mouth, so I appreciate that. I can't imagine a situation where city administration would put something like this even in front of us where liability would be a question. Can administration please comment on this concern of liability that we're hearing? Thank you.
Mr. Lewicki.
Through the mayor to Councillor vanNieuwkerk. This is certified equipment that has been built and installed in many municipalities across Canada and different places throughout. as far as the liability is concerned, I think that the signage is meant to indicate what age groups should be using it and what age groups shouldn't. Beyond that, I think that that's how most municipalities deal with this. There is no enforcement mechanism that has people watching and doing this equipment. Just like I mentioned with the toboggan hill idea, we would have no more liability on this than we would with something like that, right? And the toboggan hill, when you think about it, is there's concerns there, right? We post signage, use at your own risk, and we go from there. So I don't see any different type of liability than we're seeing on some of our other assets that we utilize. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just in follow-up, Mayor, like we're talking about some little pipe blocks and some pipes to swing on and whatnot here, right? Like this isn't a 15-foot, apparatus with no sides on it here. So yeah, I will not be supporting this amending motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Newkirk. Councilor McCook, do you wish to speak before I have a comment myself before we vote?
Just to reiterate, I guess to Councillor Tessier and Councillor vanNieuwkerk, I will not be supporting this motion. I agree that I think sometimes as parents, we need to take responsibility, but also there are a lot of things currently that could be issues for people. And I think that this is something that could be really positive for the city and that a lot of people are really looking forward to. And I'm afraid that if we slow it down, that it may not happen. So I'm trusting that admin has done their due diligence and I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor.
Yeah, last one to go here, and I totally understand what Councillor Barnhart is saying in the liability kind of question. But I think I feel pretty confident in what, the comparisons that you've made even to the Snow Hill, things like that. It's kind of our due diligence as parents as well to maintain that eye on our children and stuff and keep them safe in that regard. So I will not be supporting this motion. I did just have one question in regards to this equipment, because I've seen these, and I apologize, should have asked this earlier, but I've seen these kind of parks before, and there has been, I don't know, bigger and different kind of equipment that it just more than bars and things. Is there an opportunity to expand? Have they mentioned anything like that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller, at this point, what was expressed was that they were providing something very similar to the concept that was provided with that setup and layout, and that's what is part of the donation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. And I additionally see no difference in risk from toboggan hill to a playground to kids on the outdoor rinks skating, no helmets on. So I see no additional risk here. At that point, see no further questions or comments to speak. I will ask you to vote on the motion. If you're voting yes for the motion, you'll be taking the equipment pod out of the funding agreement. If you vote no, motion will be defeated. Council, please vote accordingly. Councillor Barnhart.
I'm in favor of the motion, obviously. Thank you for the conversation and the sober second thought. Thank you.
Welcome. I want to make sure you had a chance to vote accordingly. Councillor McCook.
Not in favor.
Thank you. The motion is defeated. Thank you very much, Council. We will now revert back to our original motion, which was item on the screen now as already moved. Who moved the motion? I forget now. Just Councilor Miller did. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion to adopt the budget amendments as provided in the report from administration? Seeing no further questions, I will call for the vote. Councillor McCook.
In favor, Mayor.
Councillor Barnhart.
In favor.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Seeing it's now 7:20. Normally, so break was 7:30, but now would be a good time, I think, for take a 5-minute break. Reconvene at 7:25 or 7:26. We've now reconvened our meeting for this evening. Just do a quick comms check. Councillor Barnhart, Councillor McCook, you can hear us okay?
I can hear you,
Yes.
ma'am.
Kat?
Yep, I
Okay,
can.
good.
There.
Next order of business on our agenda this evening is 6E, Councillor Barnhart, motion following notice. Conflicts with snow and ice on private property. I believe we'll have the notice put up on the screen in a moment here, and Kathy, you can speak to it. Actually, don't, she makes the motion, does she not, first? Yes, Councillor Barnhart, would you please make your motion, then we'll discuss it, please.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute. I couldn't find my button. Can you hear me okay, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. That by the end of the third quarter of 2022, administration prepare a report on the options for addressing issues and conflicts related to snow and ice clearing amongst neighbors, including but not limited to potential provisions in the community standards bylaw or the land use bylaw, mechanisms for conflict resolution, and resources to support residents experiencing conflict.
Thank you. Please speak to your motion.
Very briefly, I do not think it's hard to understand where I'm going with this. I think the simplicity of it is that I don't believe bylaws are the only way that we can go. However, I think they can be helpful, provided we have the means and the wherewithal to enforce, as we've talked a lot about that tonight. But I do think that one of the issues that has come up many times since I've been on council, and I shouldn't really say many times, it's come up enough that I know citizens and neighbors have difficulty sometimes resolving the issues that are causing them to feel unsafe in their home, or to feel unhappy, to have property damage, to have reason to be unsafe, or to feel that they have difficulties where they live. And I believe if we can help our residents to get along better in their neighborhood and happiness in their home, then I think that increases the amount of happiness and comfort living in our city. And so I think we start in the neighborhood and find them some way in which they can be supported. And I don't want to propose to say what those are at this point. I think the administration can put that nicely into a report and come back with that. I also know the community standards bylaw is meant to be coming back, at least I think it is. And I don't know if this is addressed in there or not, but that it may already be work in progress. I'm not aware of that for sure. So that's the reason for the motion. And we've heard from 2 residents, which doesn't mean they're the only ones having the difficulty. It means that they're the 2 that have taken the time and effort. It can be quite intimidating to come to sit in front of council or to stand in front of council. So I do appreciate that they took the time and the effort to do that. And I think it represents that there are others who are having difficulties that they are not able to get support and don't know where to turn. And they're coming to us because they don't have any other way to deal with their issue. So I'd like us to see us do something as a council. Thank you.
Councillor, is that disturbing us? We're okay? The noise is not bad? Okay, Councillor Tessier, Renee, you have the floor, please, followed by Councillor Miller. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Barnhart, for bringing this forward. I am in support of this, and we do have a sidewalk bylaw to clear our snow off. And when the city wasn't as big and we had just single-family homes in Beaumont, it wasn't an issue. But with duplexes, lane homes, and ice being a safety issue, along with our residents having actual flooding problems, we need to start giving our own bylaw officers the opportunity to issue warnings that could lead to fines, so that we start following these concerns. So I am in support, so thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller? Oh, that's really loud. Ashley, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kathy, for bringing this forward. I'm in support of this motion. My only question is, we have this specific to snow and ice clearing. Is there a separate bylaw that would cover something such as, you know, a conflict between neighbors if a dog was on their property? Or I'm just wondering if this is broad enough for what we want to do with it.
Mayor, if I could speak to that.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I didn't realize that, but now when I read it, I do see that that could be limiting. I'm just wondering if there's a way to amend that to address what you're saying, because I would certainly support that.
So I guess I wonder if that'd be me amending this or.
Friendly amendment, if you could suggest one, I'd be pleased to do that.
Right. I guess if I could suggest one, I would take out it being limited to snow and ice clearing and maybe put
just take that out, related to snow and ice clearing.
Maybe conflicts related to property.
What if we just took that out, related to snow and ice clearing, and just say conflicts amongst neighbors?
Sure, yeah.
Would that be okay? I would be okay with that as a friendly amendment.
Snow and ice should be in there, but
Okay.
along with property and put et cetera. So it's open to administration, but the snow and ice is one of those.
Like major, okay. Okay, yeah, okay, so I could leave snow and ice in there. But then an additional related to snow and ice and other, I don't know, property.
Property concerns.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
snow, ice, properties and et cetera. And
Yeah, because I mean, there's, yeah, and where I'm going with this, and I can speak to this part, is there's issues that go year round between neighbors. So that was my only thought on this, was that we should probably try to cover it all if we're gonna put this forward.
Thank you.
That's it.
Just point of order, clarification for me, Ms. Winter, can we simply amend the motion if Kathy says it's okay? Do we have to vote on Ashley's amendment? I'm assuming we can simply, if Kathy says it's okay, we can simply change the wording, correct? Please. Oh, sorry, your mic. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Barnhart has made the motion, but it is now owned by council. So all of council has to agree with these friendly amendments. All of you have to be in favor of them.
So do we have to vote on the friendly amendments, or it forms part of the motion and we voted the motion as now amended? Just so I'm clear, I'm not sure I'm clear on procedure.
Thank you, Mayor. It depends on if we have any council members who are not in favor currently of the way the motion has been changed by Councillor Miller. So if we have any councillors that don't want that, then I would say we would do an amending motion, vote on that, go back to the main motion.
Okay,
and
so
so
to
on and
clarify,
so on. So as long as we
for
have
example, if I
consensus.
felt no to property concerns, I have to say something. If I'm not considered that,
Correct.
okay, I'm not going to, but I can still vote against the motion. I have no problem with the amendments, but I can still vote against if I want to later on, right? Right, okay, that's what I thought, just to get it clear. So we don't have to vote on the amendments if everyone agrees that the wording is okay and Kathy agrees as her motion, we're okay with the changes. Thank you. Okay. I have Councillor vanNieuwkerk wishing to speak, and then I'll ask anybody else after that. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. As Councillor Barnhart had said, we've recently heard from residents bringing forward concerns with the snow and ice and neighbors. And like she said, they're coming to council because they don't feel like they have any other place to go. And we're happy to hear from them. I've often thought about what it would take to make mediation services available in Beaumont, but what I don't know is, what the uptake is on mediation services in municipalities that actually have them in place. So just a random thought about this, because mediation does come in when you're, looking at the neighborly conflicts. So the one concern I have about this motion and any motions where I think we've heard that administration is working on some things in the background, I'd just like to do a check with administration and see if and what there is for work underway that may overlap or conflict with the intent of this motion, I guess. Is administration able to comment on that, please?
Ms. Wajaya?
Thank you, Councillor vanNieuwkerk, through the mayor to you. This does not conflict with any work that administration currently has underway. Councillor Barnhart did mention that there is work being done on a community standards bylaw. It's very early on. It's in a draft stage. There will be several opportunities for review and public engagement. So it's quite timely in that we can consider, provided this motion passes, we would consider this as part of the direction for drafting that bylaw. So it is complementary in that regard.
Yeah, and if this bylaw, or sorry, bylaw, if this notice of motion were to be supported by council tonight, does that direct administration to bring back to a deliverable specific to this? Or are you stating that you can wrap up the deliverable here into the community standards bylaw and satisfy the words in this motion? Thank you.
Thank you for that follow-up question. Just to be clear, if this motion were to pass, administration would bring back a report to address the specific ask. And it would also color the work we are doing on the community standards bylaw.
One follow-up, I guess?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes, thanks.
does administration see that as a duplicate of work then? That's kind of where, that's what I'm trying to avoid here. We task you guys with a lot to do.
It is a fairly broad scope. So there will be some research and some time put into bring this report forward, but it's not really a duplication because this is asking for a report and the provisions related to the bylaw are one option. So I think the report would really flush out some of the other options available to council and try to provide some examples of where that may be effective in other jurisdictions and the uptake and try to flush that out. Any future direction on any of those options would require another council motion once that report is in front of council.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's just a lens that I always want to look at. Like, you know, I support where the direction it's going for the reasons that Councillor Barnhart outlined and for the reason that the residents sat down in front of us and told us. And you know, like I said, I've often wondered about the mechanisms for conflict resolution, but then I also wonder about the uptake of them where they do exist. So yeah, so long as there's no duplication of work here, I would support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
As amended.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would support.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no further questions, I'm assuming we are okay with the and property concerns put into the motion. I see no anybody against it, so we can vote on the motion as amended there. As I said by Councillor Barnhart, see no further questions. I will ask council to vote on the motion accordingly. Give me 1 second to set up the vote. Council, please vote. Councillor Barnhart.
Definitely in favor, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor McCook.
In favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Appreciate that. We're on to our next item on our agenda this evening, which is 6F, Councillor McCook, motion following notice, Beaumont Financial Systems. We'll have your motion up there momentarily, Catherine. I'll ask you to speak on it when it's up there. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
Please make your motion.
So my motion is that by the end of the third quarter of 2022, administration prepare a report that sets out a plan to review Beaumont's financial systems that includes the possibilities of integrating automated systems for the city's various customer-facing transactions.
Thank you. Please speak to your motion.
Thank you. So this began or stemmed from inquiries that came to me from parents regarding childcare invoices that they were receiving through the mail. And when they inquired about receiving them electronically, they were informed that this was not possible. So some of our systems are outdated and do not have the capabilities to provide automatic electronic statements. Upon further inquiries with administration on the specific topic, it identified the potential and need for other system modernization opportunities, especially when it comes to integration. And also, to my understanding, the city currently uses a number of financial systems for various activities, and not all the systems are fully integrated. And some processes are still manual in nature, i.e. like the child care invoices, which in turn can be obviously laborious and costly. Some systems are also reaching end of life. So the purpose of this motion, or the report actually, that we would get back is to identify opportunities for process improvements and efficiencies, which we as council continuously talk about wanting and needing. It would also identify opportunities for potential cost savings and look to improve service delivery to citizens and other stakeholders, and then really provide us with next steps, which may include some things that we may see at budget time. So I thought it would be prudent to get this information now. Therefore, if something is identified for budget, we have the information ahead of time. In addition, admin is already undertaking some similar work, such as the development of the digital master plan, review and implementation of new purchasing process, and the development of customer service strategy. Therefore, this report seemed timely and appropriate. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Are there any questions for Councillor McCook on her motion from council? Seeing none in the room. Councillor Barnhart. Oh, sorry, Steve. I just saw your light go on. Pardon me. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor McCook, for bringing this motion forward. As you had indicated in your remarks, it seems that there would be some complementary work done alongside the already approved budget items, and I just do want to check in with administration to make sure that that is the case. I was feverishly digging through the budget there to just try and find, what we had already approved around the digitization and the website and the electronic transformation that we're trying to undertake here right now. And I'm hoping that this would be complementary, but just would like to find that out. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Councillor Barnhart, hang on. I have CEO Schwartz. I'll go to CEO Schwartz first, and I'll come to you, Councillor Barnhart.
Actually, thank you, Mayor Daniluk. I see that Mr. Dowler has turned on his video, so we can address that.
Okay, Mr. Dowler, you have the floor if you need to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor vanNieuwkerk's question, the answer is, yeah, definitely. This would complement some of the work that's currently been approved by council, specifically the digital master plan. So we are just starting down that journey just in the first couple of weeks of that project. And that's a project that certainly we will have some engagement with council on, as well as members of the public. And so definitely will feed into this additional work if council approves the motion put forward by Councillor McCook. There's going to be some learnings that we would take out of the digital master plan, but also just kind of more focused on financial systems. And, some things, some of it would be low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that we could hopefully bring forward for consideration to implement that would have almost an immediate impact on customer service. And that would be the other piece of work that we're doing internally. A customer service review is also being undertaken by administration this year. And then we also have some work going on specifically as it relates to purchasing. So there's a number of different streams that are attached to this. And, bringing forward a report like this would help tie all of those streams together in some manner.
Sounds great to me. Thank you.
Please proceed, Steve.
Yeah, sounds great to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Any further questions for Councillor McCook? Councillor Barnhart?
Mayor, the only question I have, I'm 100%, 1,000% in favor of this, but I am just wondering whether the report coming back in September means that that's just the plan coming back. So can you give us an estimate, Mr. Dowler, about how long before we'll actually see automation of the, let's say, for example, the childcare invoices? Like, what is that, a year away?
I think full automation, Councillor Barnhart, could be a year plus away on something like the invoicing for childcare. I do believe we have what I would call an interim solution in place where we are trying to remove the mailing of invoices out to individuals. So I think there's some things that we can do immediately with respect to that particular issue. But, in terms of a more integrated, automated process what I would say where we should be as an organization. It's probably a year or plus away. So the timing around the report coming back in September, you know, it's problematic in some respects, but it also hopefully will align to what council may see come the fall budget. So, you know, as Councillor McCook mentioned in her remarks, you know, there is an intention with, again, if council approves the motion here, to provide that report, then come budget, you know, council wouldn't necessarily be surprised if there was something in the budget, either funded or unfunded, from administration around some further work with regards to system integration, system renewal, those kinds of activities.
I understand that's really complex, Mr. Dowler, but I guess my wonder is whether you need, yeah, I love the idea of an interim solution for the childcare and any other customer-facing transactions. So if you don't need any further direction on that, then I'm fine with going with this motion. Just checking in with you that we can move ahead with the interim solution as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Councillor Barnhart, and I think we can move forward with an interim solution. We are just normal course of business trying to find ways to create some efficiencies internally. And so that would definitely be one of them. And we can come up with some interim solutions that are not perfect, but get us moving in the right direction. You know, I think the digital master plan is going to help us out a lot as it relates to not only financial systems, but other systems within the organization. So, you know, I think we're on the right path here. It is going to take a little bit more time for us to get some things in order, but certainly with the pieces that are already been approved and supported by council, along with potentially this motion being supported by council, I think we're going to have everything that we need.
Thank you. Mr. Dowler, seeing no further questions, I'll call for the vote on the motion, please. Councillor McCook?
In favor, Mayor.
Councillor Barnhart?
In favor.
Oh, does that work properly? Yep, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Appreciate that. Councillor McCook is not feeling too well, so she'll be dropping off the call this evening. Hope you're feeling better tomorrow, Kat. Have a nice evening, okay?
Thanks, everyone.
We'll proceed to our next item, which is 7A, bylaws, proposed bylaw 1010-22, business license bylaw, first, second, and third reading. Point of procedure, Ms. Winter, do we have Mr. Mackin present first? If he is Mr. Mackin presenting, or do we do first reading first and then have him present? What's the best way to do this, please? And hang on one second. Your mic's live now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have Ms. Jones here that will be doing the presentation
Okay.
first to council, and then we'll go into first, second, and unanimous and third after that.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. In follow-up to our March 15th meeting, where we had a great discussion about the bylaw and the content of, we do bring back to you this evening the revisions per the motion of council. And we formally move to requesting that we seek council's approval of the three readings of the proposed bylaw, 1010-22 business license bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading of the bylaw?
I would be pleased to do that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart. Appreciate that. I'll call for any discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Councillor Barnhart?
In favor.
Thank you. And that passed unanimously. Thank you, Council. Moving on to second reading. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading on the proposed bylaw this evening? Councillor Tessier.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move the second reading on the motion presented.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion, please, Council. Seeing no discussion, Councillor Barnhart, do you wish to speak to second reading?
Basically, Mayor, I would like to thank the administration very much for taking the time to kind of go over things that council had raised as potential changes. And from my read of it, I do believe that this is going in the direction that council had hoped it would go in. So I'm very pleased to support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote on second reading of the motion. Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. That also carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Having said that, we do need unanimous consent to move to third reading on the same night as the first two readings. So am I getting consensus that we are prepared to move to third reading? Councillor Barnhart?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Winter, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I do actually need a councillor yourself to move the motion. It is a motion that we need, not consensus.
Right, we need a
For
motion
third.
for third reading, correct, that's my next thing I'm going to do. Yep, thank you. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the third reading.
Thank you. Ms. Winter, did I miss a step?
Mayor, thank you. You did miss a step. For number 3, we do need consideration for third reading. So I need a separate motion for that to go into third reading. So we need 4 separate motions this evening.
Okay, so I boo-booed. Okay.
That's okay. That's
It's a
okay, Mayor.
correctable error though, right? It's correctable.
Yeah, I know what you meant,
We
Mayor.
haven't
It's
voted
okay.
yet, so.
So we're going to, Councilor Miller
If
just
Councillor
voted.
Miller would like to move consideration for third reading.
Yes.
Thank you.
I move that bylaw 1010-22 be considered for third reading.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? That's okay. It's my boo-boo. I've done worse, I'm sure. Seeing none, I will ask council to vote accordingly. Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading of the bylaw? Councillor vanNieuwkerk, you have the floor, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that bylaw 1010-22 be given third reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will ask council to vote accordingly. Councillor Barnhart, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. And that third reading carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our next order of business is 8A, councillor inquiries. Now, that has been, I believe, addressed to Councillor Newkirk's question on 50th Street and 41st Avenue. That has been provided back to you accordingly. Do you have any concerns? Thank you. Next is CEO update. Mr. Schwartz, you have the floor. Oh, sorry. Yeah. There's a councillor inquiry coming, and it's coming from me. Well, I thought we had to do anyhow, it's Tuesday night, it's 8 o'clock almost. My inquiry is, please provide information on what tools the city currently has available to address the issue of builders not addressing garbage and construction debris on their respective work sites, for example, enforcement, fines, etc., and provide what process should residents follow when there are concerns with builders not maintaining their sites. Thank you, Ms. Winter. Are there any further councillor inquiries to be brought forth this evening before we move on to CEO update? Councillor Barnhart, do you have any inquiries?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even know I wasn't muted. Sorry, Mayor, I don't have any.
Thank you. Seeing none from council, we will move on then to item 9 on our agenda, CAO update. Mr. Schwartz, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much. Just a couple items very quickly here. We have Earth Day coming up on 2022, and that's on April 22nd. There's a couple things we're doing. We will be releasing a survey on the 22nd. The urban forest management strategy, part of it is a survey that will go out to the community to get their input as we develop their urban forest management strategy. So we're looking for public's input to understand what the residents' priorities, concerns, and interests in engagement related to our urban forest to help develop the plan that reflects the interests of the residents. So that's going to be released on April 22nd, which is Earth Day. On April 23rd, we also have a community cleanup event that's occurring. And we're asking the community to drop off their full bags before 4 p.m. There's information that'll be out on the website. Some tips on what to wear and where to drop the garbage off, which is at the Beaumont Operations Yard. So there's a couple things that we're doing to celebrate Earth Day in 2022. The last item I had is to April 12th. April 12th is recognized as Equal Pay Day. And what this means is, according to Statistics Canada, the gender gap for full-time and part-time employees is 0.89, which means women are making about 89 cents on the dollar. So the significance of today is that it takes them, women typically this much longer in a year to make the same amount of money as their male counterparts. I know that's something that we take very seriously here as an organization and as a community. And in today's day and age, that gap is being closed, but as you can see, not nearly enough. So April 12th is recognized as Equal Pay Day. So that's what I wanted to pass on for an update tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Are there any questions for our CEO from his update this evening? Seeing none, I will be involved with a local resident, Lauren Selowich, who has done a couple of years in the past a cleanup of parts of 50th Street and so on. So I'll be involved with that as well on April 23rd from 10 a.m. to about noon hours. So looking forward to that, and wearing my little vest and doing the garbage pickup, getting honked at and yelled at from cars going by. It's rather entertaining sometimes. So we'll see. That my first time doing it as mayor, though, so it'll be more fun, I think, than the last time, I'm sure. Thank you. Item number 10, notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion to be brought forth this evening from council members? I don't believe there are. From talking to Ms. Winter earlier today, nothing's popped up in the afternoon. Thank you. Our next item of business now is going into closed session. So I will read the appropriate wording on, Ms. Winter.
You have a notice of motion this evening that you would like to make?
Is that tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
All right. So that tonight, shall we? Okay. At April 26th, 2020 council meeting, I will move that by the end of the third quarter of 2022, administration prepare a report on short-term rentals in brackets Airbnb, specifically on an outline of any current standards or regulations for short-term rentals, if any, in Beaumont, and a list of comparable communities and how they regulate short-term rentals. Thank you, Ms. Winter, for reminding me of my own notice of motion. It's been a long day for some reason. I think I'm getting some hanger, maybe. That's what's going on, maybe. So, okay. No more motion? Nobody else? Okay, just myself. Awesome. Thank you very much. With that, we move into closed session. Thank you. We are now back from our closed session, and there is no business arising from the closed session that requires any kind of a motion. Those decisions were made. And with that, we ends our agenda this evening. So at this time, I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:20.